Well, thank you, Shane. And before we move to Q&A, you'll see on your screen a note to remind you that any statements made are general in nature and do not take into account your personal circumstances. Well, now to the live Q&A part of the meeting, where Tony, Elaine, Debbie, together with Scott Hartley, our newly appointed CEO of AMP Australia, will be addressing a mix of your pre-submitted and live questions. A reminder that if you wish to submit a question, you can do so using the Q&A function on the right-hand side of the webcast panel. And for those of you on the phone, press *1 on your keypad and provide the question to the operator. Now, to our first question, and Debbie, this is from a number of members, but in particular, it comes from Abdul. Abdul asks, how is AMP performing in comparison to other superannuation groups, Debbie?
Thank you very much for your question. Very happy to have the opportunity to answer that. So many AMP members do make active decisions about where they invest through the range of options that we offer through the AMP platform. And there is a very extensive oversight process that goes across those options to make sure that they're adhering to a number of factors, but particularly long-term relative performance. If we look at our My Super range of funds, absolute returns have been strong, as we saw previously, but relative performance has been a little bit more mixed. And we know, obviously, that relative performance is really important for us. What we can observe is that the relative performance of investment managers tends to go through cycles. While our shorter term performance over the 3 and 5 years is just below the industry median, because of stronger long-term performance, our long-term relative performance is good and in line with the industry median. We're doing a lot to really focus on investment performance going forward. And there's a number of things that we've been working on. I'll just reference a couple of those today. One is that over the last couple of years, we've made very significant progress around really doing a deep dive across all of our underlying managers and strategies to make sure that they're fit for purpose. And as a result of that, we have made a few changes which already are having a positive impact on performance. Secondly, we've invested heavily in our risk and analytic team internally. And that's to make sure that we recognise key opportunities across markets, but that we're diversifying and managing risk appropriately for our members. We're very happy to say that for our main peer-related funds, performance has improved very significantly over the last couple of years. In 2019, our performance was in line with the median manager, and it was just ahead over the 2020 calendar year. Also, although the year is very young, we are also seeing some encouraging signs. We know that performance is really important, and we're continuing to manage and monitor and push forward to give you the appropriate performance results. Tony, anything that you would like to add?
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for that overview. As I went through earlier in the presentation, there's 5 pillars in our trustee strategy, and one of those is very much around the focus on investment performance. So it's very much a focus for us as trustee to enhance the long-term investment outcomes for members. And to do this, we'll be working very closely with Elaine, with Debbie, with Scott, and the newly appointed Deputy CEO of AMP Capital, David Atkin. But this is a collective effort with that singular focus from the trustee oversight perspective. And as I also mentioned earlier today, we've done a lot of work and focus during the 2020 year around accountabilities, reducing the complexity, making them a lot clearer. And this is an important platform to, again, impacting member outcomes, and particularly through the investment management process.
Well, thank you, Tony and Debbie. Our next question is to you, Scott, and it comes from Matthew. And Matthew asks, how does the current disruption to the AMP board management and culture affect my super performance?
That's a great question, Matthew. And the short answer is it doesn't. As Tony explained in his opening presentation, the nature of superannuation, of the trustee structure, is that it's kept separate and secure from the performance of the AMP group and is not affected by the performance of the AMP group and the AMP share price. So that's the short answer. The longer answer is I would, and also I should say that AMP is well capitalised and a very strong, in a strong position financially across the board. I joined AMP in January, very excited to work with Francesco and the team and the boards on the turnaround of AMP. Like you, until January when I joined, I had observed the issues that AMP had occurred since the Royal Commission and through issues that occurred last year. I was very disappointed by that, to see an organisation that has been an outstanding contributor to the Australian economy and to its customers over 170 years, very disappointed to see that. What I've found since joining AMP is in fact a culture that is very focused on client, very focused on getting the best outcome for our members, and very determined to transform the business and its reputation and return AMP to a market leader. It's made a lot of progress in the last 24 months, particularly in the super space, with simplification of our products that brought fee benefits to members over 2019 and 2020, as Elaine mentioned, and strengthened the business, and I think laid very good foundations for the transformation and turnaround that is currently occurring to see AMP back as a leader in the industry.
Well, thanks very much, Scott. Our next question is to you, Elaine, and it comes from Ran. Ran asks, what concrete steps is AMP taking to reduce administration and other costs to offer competitive superannuation products as compared to industry funds? Elaine.
Ran, thank you for your question. I can assure you that competitive pricing is an absolute priority and focus for us. I talked earlier in my speech about the fee reductions that were passed to members. That equates to approximately 130 million in fee reductions for members over the last few years. We've also provided fee discounts to our My North Wrap members. And you've heard Scott and Tony talk today about the importance of the simplification of our product set. This is vital because it will drive greater efficiencies through our business, and those efficiencies in turn are going to enable us to pass on further fee reductions and more benefits to members. Thanks for your question, Ran.
The next question, Scott, is to you, and it comes from Tracy. What are the most significant forecast changes for superannuation in the next 10 years?
Well, 10 years is a long time, and I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can tell you is broadly what the government is wanting the system to do is to engage members more, and for members to take more ownership and more involvement in their superannuation, and also to improve member outcomes across the system. They're looking to improve the efficiency of the system. Last week the government tabled new legislation which will certainly have an impact in the short term. That was the Your Future, Your Super legislation, which really is aiming to improve the inefficiencies in the system in terms of multiple accounts by stapling an individual to their super fund so they only have one account through their lifetime. And the other thing that they're really focused on is the benchmarking the performance of default super funds in particular against some reference portfolios to ensure that all funds in the system are performing the way they should, and if they're not, then to have those funds basically stop providing services to members. And the changes are still being, so they've only just been tabled last week. There will be regulations coming out which will clarify those changes further. But in my view, the policy is good policy, and we're well positioned to deal with that as well from an AMP perspective.
Well, thanks very much, Scott. Our next question is to you, Elaine, and it comes from Tony. Tony asks, has the sale of AMP Life had any impacts on members who are insured with them?
Thanks for the question, Tony. Very, very simple answer to your question. Absolutely no change and absolutely no impact. Resolution Life is the new owner of our insurance business, and they continue to manage the existing policies as we would have done. I think a really important message for our members as well is you shouldn't think that insurance isn't important to us because of that sale. In fact, quite the reverse. We absolutely understand the importance of insurance for our members and the benefit that it provides. So we will absolutely ensure that we are always offering very high quality insurance at great value for our members going forward.
Thanks, Elaine. And just a reminder that you can still get your questions in using the webcast function or dialing, and operators are standing by. So we really would appreciate more questions. Our next question, once again to you, Scott, comes from Peter. Peter asks, what is the future for financial advisors, as it appears that many have quit the industry since the Royal Commission?
Now, I'm very popular with the questions, Michael. Thank you. Peter, good question. Look, the financial advice industry is on a journey of professionalism. There have been a number of changes to regulation and compliance that has led to many advisors exiting the industry. AMP is at the leading edge of this in terms of we're a large owner of licensees, which are where advisors operate from their licence. So we are aiming to lead the industry, building a strong, professional and sustainable advice network. We're also building what we call scalable advice, but services at different levels to members. So not everyone wants to see an advisor and get full comprehensive advice, and sometimes all you need is a bit of guidance and advice or a episodic piece of advice at some point through your wealth creation journey. So we're building that multi-channel and have in fact pretty much built that and further rolling that out to members over the coming years. We know that advice is critically important to members for them to maximise retirement outcomes. We're very clear on that, and we're very keen to see to continue to be a leader in the advice services space in the Australian industry.
Well, thank you, Scott. Elaine, you're also very popular with the questions. We've got our next question from Anwara. And the question is, it's a long one, with all of the changes to super that have occurred in the previous years, especially with the introduction of early withdrawals of lump sums due to COVID, do you still believe super to be the best vehicle for accruing retirement savings?
Thanks for the question, Anwara. Before I answer that question directly, I think there's an important message to give our members here, particularly those who have accessed their superannuation as a result of early release of super. So across the industry, we've seen more than 3 million members withdraw over 36 billion in retirement savings, and for AMP specifically, we saw 220,000 of our members access their superannuation savings, and unfortunately we saw some accounts close as all funds were withdrawn. And whilst we're very pleased that this money, without a doubt, has provided assistance for our members at a time when there were many challenges, financial challenges through 2020, I think what is concerning for us, particularly those who have withdrawn all funds, is that those eroded super balances are really going to not incur the benefits of compounding over time. So the message to our members, for those who have withdrawn money, interact with us, come to our education sessions, read our information online, and let us help you rebuild those balances over time. And now to your question, absolutely, for the vast majority of people, we believe that superannuation is the best vehicle for retirement savings.
Thank you, Elaine. I might let you get a glass of water because the next one's coming to you again. It's from Zana. Is there a plan to maximise ethical investments, especially towards the control of climate change?
Thanks, Zana. I actually didn't get a chance to have a glass of water there. We'll have it after. A couple of things to say to you here. We absolutely understand that ESG principles are of paramount concern for our members, particularly around environment and climate change, as it is for AMP. Probably some important information to validate that importance is we've actually been carbon neutral as a group at AMP since 2013. And pleasingly, last year, we achieved the second highest rating in our submission to the Carbon Disclosure Project. And why that's important to share with you is it should give our members comfort that we are demonstrating leadership in the way that we manage and disclose our carbon risks and opportunities. Now today, particularly for our My North members, you can access over a dozen different ethical portfolios. And namely the My North Sustainable Managed portfolio. So absolutely, we understand it's important for investors. There's good ethical options available to you today, and without a doubt, this will be a focus area for us going forward.
Thanks, Elaine. We might give you a bit of a break. It looks like the next one coming through is from Rex. Tony, it's for you. And the question is the board confident that its processes and governance structure are now in the best interests of its members? If that's the case, then what assurance can the board provide to members to regain our trust?
Thanks, Michael, and thank you, Rex, for that question. The very short answer is yes. We're very confident with the processes that we've instilled, as I talked about earlier. We have a board of 7 directors, all independent, non-executive directors, and gone through that refresh process over the last 18 months. But as you recall in the presentation earlier, looking back on that trustee strategy again, 5 pillars, one of those is the autonomous and effective trustee. So that's very important to us, being part of the AMP group, but being able to and certainly acting in that autonomous and effective manner. So that's to ensure our decision-making processes are solely in the interest of the members, yourself, Rex, and the other members, and I can assure you that you can have the full confidence of that process and the trustee board. Secondly, I think, is what I mentioned in responsive to the question around investments a little bit earlier. We've spent a lot of time making sure that the accountabilities and the responsibilities of the people that report through to us, of the service providers that report through to us, are very clear, very straightforward, and we're constantly receiving reporting and being able to enact those accountabilities as part of that.
Well, thanks very much, Tony. Elaine, back to you, and I know this is a question dear to your heart, comes from Greta, and Greta asks, what are you doing for women in particular and their lower superannuation savings?
Greta, thank you for the question. I was hoping that this would be raised. It's a challenge that is being spoken about more and more in society, and it's important that it is, and it just raises the point that there's so much to do in this space. The 2019 Financing Women's Index suggested that there is a 28% gap between the retirement savings of men and women when they retire. It's a massive gap. And we also know the increased incidences of women that find themselves in retirement living below the poverty line. So there's much to do, and we need to step in and assist. And in terms of what is AMP doing, well, we've been doing a lot in this space for a number of years now. Our financial wellness research has highlighted for a number of years that women are more concerned about retirement outcomes than men. So the team have been providing an array of resources for our female members. We created a financial wellness support hub. If you just go on to amp.com.au and search financial wellness in the search bar, you'll see a link that'll give you access to the support hub. It's really important because it focuses on education and information beyond retirement to really assist women think about not only retirement savings but contributing issues to the lack of superannuation savings, like what to think about when going on maternity leave or what to think about when coming back from maternity leave in terms of budgeting and giving a really important set of financial assistance and help there. On top of that, we are in workplaces providing education seminars, town hall sessions, classroom sessions, or even just one-on-ones, particularly targeting females and helping them understand the different types of strategies and actions that they should be thinking about and should be taking to try and increase their superannuation balances, and we will continue to do that. Now, we also offer webinars, so virtual webinars. I really encourage you that when you see us advertise those, bring friends, bring family, get your sisters, aunts, whoever to these sessions, because awareness as soon as possible is really, really important, and they will find these forums exceptionally valuable. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Elaine. And just picking up that point, at the end of the Q&A session, we will be giving you a link through to how you can access those webinars, which includes the specific webinars that deal with the issues that Elaine has talked to. We'll also be giving you contact into our insights hubs and how to contact and look at valuable insights into super retirement and wealth. Elaine, another question for you, and it is a supplementary to the last one. This time it comes from Karen. Karen asks, what initiatives are planned to improve support for all AMP superannuation investors such as me?
Karen, thanks for the question. I talked in my speech earlier on about the importance of AMP continuing to innovate and continuously improve the technology and the services that we provide our members. So what you can expect to see is continued investment in high quality education and information resources tools that we provide our members, continued investments in digital technology like MyNorth and MyAMP, continuing to provide really important services that we know our members value, like for our superannuation fund members, our intra-fund advice offer, or the new retirement health check that is now available. And we're also investing heavily in solutions that will enable our members and advisors to be able to engage with us more easily and for us to be able to respond and serve them better. Now, one thing that I will say is please make sure you read the emails that we send you. In those emails, it's important notifications of new services that we think will be of value to you. So please read them and take action, engage with us. The last thing I would say as well is if you are not a member of MyAMP, please register. amp.com.au, and you'll see up the top of the web page, download MyAMP app. Click on that and you can either download it as an app on your phone or you can register via your desktop. But that is a really important tool, not only to help you with retirement issues, but broader financial matters as well. And it's just a way that we're going to be able to engage with you far quicker and expediently.
Thank you, Elaine. Now, sticking with the gender theme, Tony, this is a question for you. It's a double-barrel question, and it comes from Carol. Carol asks, how are you working to correct the gender imbalance of your board? And are you anticipating innovation with a quota system?
Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Carol. Gender equality and diversity in general, for that matter, is very important to the trustee board. And you might have noticed in my presentation earlier that over the last 18 months we've appointed 5 new directors to the board, and 3 of those have been female. So our current board makeup of the trustee board, of the total 7 directors, 3 female and 4 male. I'd also add that the 4 key executives that report through to the board, or 4 of the key executives that report through to the board, including Elaine and Debbie, who you're meeting in this presentation today, but also the head of our trustee office and our chief risk officer are female as well. So from a trustee board perspective, we put a lot of store in gender diversity, but also diversity from a broader perspective. The second part of your question, Carol, in relation to the quotas, it isn't an intention for us to be introducing that. As per the earlier part of my answer, we're certainly very focused on gender diversity and well on the way to having quite substantial diversity in our perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. The next question is a bit of a change of theme, and it's to you, Scott. It's from Susan, and Susan asks, how confident are you regarding protection against cyber attacks?
Yeah, great question. Cyber is so the short answer is I am confident that we are well positioned from a cyber security perspective. But what I can say is this is an area that you can never get complacent. The cyber criminals are constantly evolving their capabilities. They're constantly getting more and more innovative, you might say, in how they attack organisations, and we've got to constantly improve to keep up with that trend. And we have very good insights into that. We have teams of people looking at this constantly, and we will stay ahead of the game. But yeah, as I said, you can't be complacent about cyber.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to stay with you, and it's a question from Michael, and makes a comment. I'll take the first part as a comment. The current vertically integrated model isn't working, according to Michael. Is it a high priority for the incoming CEO following the Royal Commission recommendations? I assume that's getting to, does it still make sense, Scott?
Yeah, so you're right, Michael. Vertical integration is not a sustainable model going forward, and I would say that AMP has moved a long way in unpacking its model. So each part of the business is separate and has to stand on its own 2 feet. That is my focus for the business. That is each part of the business, whether it be the advice business or the wealth business, the super and the wrap business, or the banking business, each business has to be able to deliver leading customer outcomes in its particular part of the value chain and market segment, leading outcomes to customers, and do that sustainably from a business perspective. We've made a lot of progress, more work to do, but I think we're absolutely on that same page that relying on vertical integration is well and truly over in terms of business models, and that's certainly not what we're relying on going forward.
Well, thanks very much, Scott. A number of people could answer the following one, but I'm going to hand this one to you, Elaine, and it's from Graham. Graham asks, when is AMP going to offer a passive option with an associated very low cost fee?
Thank you, Graham. Graham, we actually offer a large range of passive investment options today available on My North, and also for superannuation fund members you will find passive options available on the choice menu.
Thanks very much, Elaine. Next one, Debbie, comes to you from Sherilyn, and Sherilyn asks, what is the panel's approach or process for reviewing its investment offerings?
Well, thank you for that question. Good to have a chance to speak. Investment managers on the menu are selected across a number of criteria. So that includes their performance history, the quality of the team and their track record. We have a pretty extensive monitoring process, which I talked a little bit about before. And so what we're looking for with those managers once they're on the platform is there any unexpected deviations in performance or changes in investment process. And to be honest, actually, the main thing that sort of makes us concerned is if we see key people risk. And so that, again, is something that we monitor very closely. So we do go through a quantitative assessment across all of the managers on our platform, and as I said, we're managing certain performance and management criteria. And obviously, if our managers fail any of those, there are consequences, and at times we will take immediate action.
Thanks, Debbie. I think the next one naturally fits with you, Scott, and it comes from Mark. Mark asks, he's interested in the board's view of the implications of the retirement income review on members and possible changes arising.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much is going to come from the retirement income review. It didn't make any recommendations. It made a whole bunch of observations. I'm sure the government will draw on it in forming policy. It's not clear. Well, I guess there's already evidence of it forming policy on it in relation to the retirement income review, suggesting that the move to 12% was not necessary at this time. And whilst we support the move to 12% because it's in the best interests of members' retirement outcomes, we do appreciate that the world has changed a little in the last 12 months. And there may need to be some adjustment. That said, we need to be clear about, I think, the goal of superannuation really is to ensure that Australians can have a dignified retirement. And the more that we allow people to withdraw money or reduce don't get the rate to the right place, the savings rate to the right place, I think is dangerous to that objective. But that's probably some of the key things that were talked about in the review. Other things will obviously be picked up in policy along the way. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Next one to you, Elaine, from Nishant. Nishant wants to know how to access tools on AMP's site or elsewhere to plan for effective retirement.
Thank you, Nishant. There are a very comprehensive range of tools to help you plan for retirement. Suggest you go onto amp.com.au in the search bar, type retirement, and you'll see a range of links that will take you to various education pieces, information, retirement calculators, retirement simulators that will help you get a good understanding on that topic. And for those of our North members, my North members, comprehensive information is available to you through North Online, and you'll be able to access a wide range of reports, statements, all surfaced up to you through a digital report.
Thanks, Elaine. And just a reminder that with 12 minutes to go, we are still taking questions. You can do that through the Q&A function on your webcast panel or through the phone. And if we don't get through to them, we will be answering later through the website. Now, the next one, Elaine, is to you. It's similar to the question, an extension to the previous one. It's from Karen. Karen wants to know how to set up for retirement. How much will she need?
Thanks, Karen. It's probably the most often asked question we hear. I only wish it was asked far earlier by our younger members, not for those people about to retire. There's many different ways to look at this, and the answer is going to be very different for every single member. But if I just sort of talk to some themes, initially I think it is really important for you to understand, what kind of lifestyle you're thinking you want to lead in retirement, financial plans through retirement, how long do you intend to retire? Now there are aspects of our website that will guide you through that thinking. Once you've done that, it's then important to understand, well, how much money am I actually going to have in retirement? Again, there are retirement calculators available to you that will ask you questions around current salary, contributions, superannuation balance and other assets, and that will give you a sum in retirement or indicative on current trajectory. And then it will lead you through a series of questions around, so what do you want to do in retirement? What do you think your expenses will be in retirement? And it will give you an indication of income, weekly or otherwise, for you in retirement. Now that should do two things. That should enable you to tick the box to say, well, I'm on track and I'm very happy with that number. Or otherwise it might say, actually, I need to take some different actions. Now, those members who are on the call today in advised relationships, no doubt you are having this critical conversation with your trusted advisor, so you have that in hand. For those of you who are our superannuation fund members, perhaps not advised, I really encourage you to access our new retirement health check service. Many members through our intra-fund advice service have told or questioned us around retirement outcomes. We've developed this service because we know there's a need and people need more help on this topic. So please avail yourself of this service. It's at no additional cost to you, and I know that if anything, it'll just give you peace of mind that you're on track for the retirement outcome you want, or it will help you think about perhaps taking some different action. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Elaine, and a reminder to Karen, in fact, all of our members, that there is access to lots of free education information, resources and insights from our experts, and that's accessible on our Insights Hub, and this is available on our website at amp.com.au/insights. Back to you, Debbie. Question from Madhu. Madhu asks, what risks do you see as material to the investment strategies you're running for your members, and how do you proactively address and manage these risks?
Thank you, Madhu. Great question to ask me. I often say that my role is a risk manager role, and it's something we obviously think about a lot, managing money on your behalf. Look, I think the answer is it's always market risk, and that's always where our focus is. I think the biggest theme looking forward is that we are expecting to see lower returns for markets going forward. We've talked throughout this presentation about the fact that government bond yields are very low currently, and also cash rates are very low. And so their diversifying role in a portfolio is somewhat compromised looking forward. And so really where we're spending a lot of time currently is really thinking about how we make our portfolios resilient going forward, so that they're going to generate the performance that we need and you need as members, but that we're protecting and diversifying. Now, some of that can be done through the products that you choose to invest in. And so if you think about the life cycle product, which we spoke about earlier, because we are bucketing members by their age, we can manage risk more effectively through that process and that product range. For advised members, we do have extensive choice across our menu, and that's at different risk profiles, and we encourage people to really think about the risk that they're comfortable taking.
Well, thanks, Debbie. And the next question, Elaine, and we see this from a number of our members, and Gary's asked this specifically. Gary asks, can I deal with AMP directly, or must I go through a financial advisor?
Thanks, Michael. Gary, you can interact with us in the way that you prefer. There's no direction here from AMP, so if you wanted to interact with us directly, that's absolutely available to you. Additionally, if you do choose to interact with us via a financial advisor, then that's totally appropriate as well. If you go onto amp.com.au, you can search, find a financial advisor or contact AMP directly, and you'll be able to navigate that pathway that you prefer. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Elaine. We've got our first anonymous question. I'm going to give this one to you, Scott. It's, what is your view of the APRA heat map?
Well, thank you, Anonymous. Look, we support the intent of the APRA heat map to provide transparency and help members compare elements of the superannuation. The direct comparisons can be a bit tricky, particularly when you're looking at products such as ours, which are life cycle cohorts. The benchmarking data or the benchmarks and the data that goes into those comparisons can be a little tricky, and we're working, and APRA is in fact working to update and improve data. And we are also working to understand where the benchmarks are shifting and how this evolves and plays out. But more broadly, I'd say we do support the heat map, and we hope the heat map will raise awareness of the importance of investment risk and superannuation.
Thanks, Scott. Next question to you, Elaine, from Kanika. Hopefully I've pronounced that, Kanika, correctly. She asks, when can I actually take out my super, Elaine?
Thanks, Kanika. Generally, you can access your super at preservation age and you're retired. But there are other circumstances where you can access your superannuation early. I'm not sure about the preface of your question, so what I would recommend for you, if those two answers I've given don't suffice, amp.com.au, just type in when I can access my super and you'll be given a raft of information. So hopefully that will provide you directly the question you're asking.
Thanks, Elaine. Scott, another question perhaps for you, and maybe Tony perhaps. Scott, is AMP in a better position now than it was 12 months ago?
Yeah, well, whilst I'm fairly new, I just arrived, my view, having spent almost 2 months in the organisation, is that it's in a far better position than it was 12 months ago. And if you put aside the noise that we talked about earlier, it has done a lot of work. A lot of our people have worked very hard in the transformation of the organisation. The work that's been done has, as I said earlier, in the last year or two, has really shifted us to a much better position from a turnaround perspective. The AMP Life sale was completed as an example of that. The separation of AMP Life from AMP was largely done. The super business has been simplified. We're substantially reshaping the advice network, so it's competitive and sustainable going forward, and providing best interests to all of our clients across the advice network. There's technology upgrades that occurred through AMP Bank last year, complete technology refresh, which was done really well and it's been really successful and sets us up for growth in that part of the business. There's strong foundations that have been put in place across the business. More work to do, absolutely, but really strong foundations, so definitely in a better place than it was 12 months ago.
Tony, did you want to add to that at all?
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, look, I might just make a couple of points of emphasis, and I've mentioned these throughout the presentation and some of the questions. Firstly is around the simplicity and simplification of accountabilities and responsibilities. So Scott mentioned that life company sale. We mentioned that earlier in the presentation. For us as trustee, that's allowed a direct line of sight to the service providers that at the end of the day are impacting you, the members, rather than moving through that life company and then a range of accountabilities that were working there. So for us as trustee, the work that's gone on in 2020 does put you as members within the AMP superannuation funds in a much better place. We feel there's an excellent platform now to continue to enhance the way we do things in 2021, and those simplifications and further enhancements will impact areas such as long-term investment returns, fees and admin charges, which only benefits then the outcome that we're striving for you as the members. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Well, that concludes the question and answer part of our meeting. If we haven't had time to get to your questions, and I know we've got a number of questions we haven't got to, a reminder that we'll be publishing responses on our website together with a recording of today's meeting. To make it easier for you to access the answers, we'll be grouping those into related themes, and these will be available on the AMP website via the following URL. We'll publish these in the next 30 days. If your question is of a personal nature, one of our member services team will be in touch with you directly. And also a reminder that some of the resources you make available and we can access them. You can go to our website, the education webinars are here, and you can also access a range of helpful information on our insights at the following site. We publish articles and insights on super, retirement and wealth. And with that, Tony, I'm going to pass to you for some final comments.
Thank you, Michael. And may I thank you, Michael, for your hosting today too. Excellent work. Before we close this meeting, on behalf of the trustee directors and AMP, I'd like to reaffirm our commitment to you, the members, and that you can rest assured that your interests are at the forefront of every decision that the trustee makes. So I do thank you for taking the time to join today's meeting and your questions and your ongoing support of AMP. Back to you, Michael.
Thanks, Tony, and would also love your feedback on today's event. If you've got your smartphone handy, simply scan on the QR code on the screen now. On behalf of Tony, Elaine, Debbie, Shane and Scott, thank you very much for joining the meeting and for your continued support of AMP.